filming from Kathmandu, where I'm making a TV series on shamanism, and I want to answer a question related to meditation and its relationship to shamanism, and also about the cultivation of energy as a foundation to shamanic practice. So it's actually quite a complex subject, because you can become a shaman through many different pathways, and the way in which you cultivate your energy and the way and the support network that you build inside yourself determines the particular way in which your internal energy and your emotions are balanced and focused, and also determine the way that you cultivate your natural abilities. So I have a background as a fine artist, and painting and sculpture, and also a background in Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation. I've practiced meditation for more than 30 years. And those practices act as an absolute grounding foundation to my shamanic practice. So when I direct energy with my fervour, the energy is coming through an awareness of my heart energy, which I cultivated both through art and through Tai Chi and Qigong practice, and also through a type of Taoist meditation. And when I focus my attention, it's very, very similar to the way in which I focus a brush mark. Recently I made a short video about a meditation with a short sword that I do, and I realised that there was a lot more that I needed to show about the space between action and focus and emptiness, and it's this internal space which is particularly important in terms of shamanic practice. In a way, the tools that we use are both incredibly useful and very, very important, but you can focus with all sorts of things, and you don't have to have a knife in your hand or a sword or a pen in order to focus your awareness. But the tools also help. They act as a way of the fact of this knife, with its blade and its tip and its weight, and the way that you hold it in your hand, makes it much more easy to focus your awareness in a way that's about cutting and focusing and pointing. The fact of a brush has that quality of touch, with the brush mark, the bristles at the end, the way that holds paint, and you internalize those internal qualities. So these are brushes that I've had for more than 30 years. I look after my brushes. You can see they're painty on the outside, but the bristles are now quite worn. They've really changed shape over the years. I had these at university, and I've used them for thousands and thousands of hours. I have a massive array of brushes, and every one I know the precise type of mark that I can get with it. Well, that's very similar with shamanic tools that you have. So this fervour I use for connecting with ancestors, it has a vibration about it that is really, it gathers in, and it opens the awareness, it opens the psychic body in a way where this is a fervour that I use all the time. I carry this one with me everywhere. I often sleep with it near my head, or I put it on my heart if I'm sleeping, and I use it as a guardian. And this is my all-purpose fervour. This one I don't carry around so much. I have it at home, and they have focused qualities that is very similar to the way that I might use a brush mark to get a particular type of sensitivity in a painting. And the shamanic path has that quality of using objects as vehicles of awareness, as vehicles of consciousness. So one of the things that first really attracted me to the objects was that you have this range of qualities. So one of the similarities between the creative arts and shamanic practice is this use of tools to focus your awareness in a particular way, to bring the emotions in a particular way, to bring your psychic energy in a particular way. And my Tai Chi practice really helped when I was collecting and buying objects. I found many years ago that I could feel the energy in the objects. So I once had an interesting conversation with Mohan Rai. He flew to London to see me. And Mohan was a very great shaman. He was very powerful, very wise, spoke 26 languages, had worked through many different traditions. His father had been the shaman to the king of Bhutan, and he had grown up in a shamanic family, but his dad was alcoholic, and so he'd been trained by his grandmother and by his aunties and by other shaman, but not particularly by his own father. And then he went into the army to support the family, because although his dad was on a big stipend from the king, he drank it all. And so Mohan was sort of looking after his family from an early age. But he then went and studied with the different shaman groups as they went all over Bhutan, and later when he moved to Nepal, he was travelling around. And then later travelling in Europe and America, and each time seeking out shaman from different traditions. And he came to London and gave this wonderful talk on ancestors, and I laid out a lot of my shamanic objects around, partly to sort of set him in context. And one of the comments he made was that without the mantra, the objects like the Ferber were just pieces of wood. And afterwards I said to him, this isn't my experience, that I don't use the mantra to open the Ferber. I open my heart center and I project my energy into the objects, often through my hands. I hold the objects and then they reveal themselves to me. And he laughed and he said, in that case you don't need the mantra. So the pathways to shamanic practice can be from many different sides. So I learnt a type of deep esoteric practice where you open the heart center, you focus on the pauses between the heartbeats. So at first you listen to your own heartbeats, you go inside, you feel the physical heart, and then you feel the pauses between the beats. And then another layer to that is you practice in those pauses going into a type of infinite space. So you have the form and the formlessness, the form and the formlessness. And in those pauses there's a type of infinite holiday, like a rest. You've got the beat and the rest, beat, rest, beat, rest. And so you become aware of this sort of paradoxical state of awareness in your normal life. And then with that, you can practice extending your energy field with each heartbeat, and then also with each breath. So you reach out to touch people and you draw it back. You reach out and you touch people and you draw it back. And this is the seed of things like distant healing, that you're sending your awareness. So you've got your physical energy, which might have an energy field of maybe 50 feet for the heart. And then you have the psychic energy awareness, where sometimes that related at first to sight. So you might look at someone in the distance and project your energy. And then you have something which is much stranger, where you're thinking of someone, maybe you're using their image. The Shaymin here often use a photograph of someone when they're doing distant healing, and they ask for their birth data and sometimes their address, and then they have their photograph. So you've then got another dimension which is quite outside of the normal linear space and time. You're doing something else where you're jumping awareness. So in the Tai Chi practice, we're expanding and contracting with the breath and with the heartbeat. And you can bring that awareness into the other chakras as well. So for instance, you can also travel using the diaphragm. So I had been doing this for many years, and I had a period of time where I was meditating up on the cliffs in Cornwall all night. I took 3 months where I was doing this every day. So sitting up on the cliffs with the waves coming and breathing into my belly to keep myself warm, pumping the breath into the belly and bringing awareness. And what I found was that I started spontaneously travelling using the heart. And shortly after that, I had a number of powerful Shaymin visit me from lots of different countries. And one of them was a very powerful Shaymin from Siberia. And she came and she said she had seen me for many years, and that now her students had contacted me. She could see my face. And so I had this very strange conversation with her Russian translator. And the next week she came and visited. And I wasn't sure what to tell her, because my practice is rather unconventional. I try things, I experiment, I play with things. I watch my internal responses to stuff. Anyway, she asked me what my practice was, and I was describing various things that I do. Going and meditating and drumming on the beach in Cornwall, going to particular places that were sacred and powerful in the woods and forests, focusing with the fervour, giving certain offerings. And then I told her about my heart meditation practice, and she began laughing, and she said, "That's how we travel." And I had spontaneously discovered this through meditation and through Tai Chi. But at the time, this was many years ago, I hadn't connected that to the shamanic practice. So it had arisen spontaneously. So the thing I'm trying to get at here is that we have practices which ground our energy and which cultivate our energy. And so I'll show you now something. So with the heartbeat listening, you can focus on your belly, you focus on your heart. You breathe deeply down into the belly, and you're listening and feeling the heartbeats. And you can just, I'm going to do everything very fast here because it's on video and I can't just sit here for hours with my eyes shut. But if you're focusing on the heartbeats and you're sinking the energy down, you ground the energy, it keeps the flow of your energy very nice. The posture is that the head is quite straight. So it's a little bit like the head is suspended. So the flow through the spine is very good. I tend to do a type of open-eyed meditation, particularly when I'm outside, and I'm bringing that awareness so that everything is flowing in me and through me and around me, but I'm not really resting my awareness on anything. So you're paying attention to that the heartbeat and to the breath. And then you practice just expanding that out a little bit and bringing it back. Expanding and bringing it back. Expanding and bringing back. So I've got a few different sorts of shamanic objects here, each of which are designed for focusing, designed for pointing, designed for awareness. So this is a porcupine quill. So it's often seen as a magic arrow. So you can see it's very pointed on both ends. So it's interesting that it's the thing that is defending also aims into the porcupine. And the shaman sometimes think of the porcupine as a sort of bridge between mammals and birds because of the quills are so much like feathers. But this is it's a very pointed, focused type of awareness. And you can see this is really different from this Tibetan knife. And then I have a selection of shamanic knives here. So a shaman knife can be used like a ferber for directing energy. It can be used practically for cutting things and making herbal medicine and so on. In this one you can see you've got the deer horn, and in this case the metal is then the masculine and this is the feminine. But both ends are used for focus. There's another one. Both ends are used for focusing, both are used for directing energy. This hornbill also used for focusing the awareness so when the shaman is flying in the upper world, so it connects to Garuda, it connects to shamanic flight. But also you can use this like a ferber. So there's a relationship between the heart and the body and the awareness and sending energy through the hand, sending energy from up through, so in Tai Chi terms it would come up through the soles of the feet, spiralling up through the ground, up through the perineum, up through the different chakras, focused into awareness, into the hand. So you can project energy using the bodily energy but also the psychic energy. Well, this is really similar. You see, you can focus the energy with the object. You can focus the energy with a ferber, with a different mudra, with mantra. So Mohan talked about the combination of meditation, mantra, mudra, yantra, like the Sri yantra behind me. That's all part of the practice. So when you're holding a ferber, you might hold like this, where you're directing it. Sometimes you hold a ferber like this, where you're meditating and you're focusing the energy. So quite often when a shaman is healing someone, they'll get them to hold the ferber like this. And the shaman is using the ferber to watch what's going on inside the person being healed. So the ferber is protecting them and guarding them, and also acting as a sort of internal bridge between the person being healed and the shaman. So the shaman has part of their consciousness inside inside the fur bow. So you might hold like this, you might project like this. So the shamanic practice is grounded in many, many different ways. Those other practices are both part of shamanism. So, for instance, a lot of the Himalayan shaman that I know, they all do mantra, they all draw yantras, they all do mudras, they know all sorts of hand gestures. So these hand gestures relate to the energy channels in the body. So they're intimately related to things like Tai Chi and Qigong and acupuncture and yoga, and even otherwise uneducated shaman who have never gone to school have this vast repertoire of mudras, for instance, and mantra. But there's a difference between the way that you consciously hold information and the way that you consciously cultivate yourself and using formula. So one of the things I found in Nepal is that a lot of shaman are using formula. So they know loads of mantras for doing something, they know the mudras for doing something, but they've learnt it rote style, parrot fashion. And when you ask them what they're doing, they can't tell you. Well, this is one of the part of the quality of Eastern culture, that there's a lot of things like that, where things exist in an emotional way and in a physical way where they've learnt something practically, but they can't intellectually tell you why they're doing it. But it also leaves a type of vulnerability, because the ability to control and to cultivate your inner state of awareness is extremely important, because as the energy rises, as your capacity to hold energy and to navigate in ever rougher, wilder waters, as that increases, the sheer wear and tear on the psyche becomes massively powerful. And I think that that's why quite a lot of shaman end up as alcoholics or with mental health problems. Sometimes it's just pure burnout. And I think that part of that is because they don't have the conscious processes of self-cultivation. So they, inside the system, of all different sorts of traditions, there are ways of releasing the build-up of energy, but it's not always systematized, and sometimes shaman become vehicles for the energy, and they're able to transmit something because they've learnt, because they have the energy, because they're inborn with it, or they've learnt the processes. But there's a weak point that I've noticed across many different cultures, where the need for this self-cultivation is extremely important, and so I'm opening that up actually as a question for people to discuss and maybe to ask me more about. I think it's an area which is very, very important and needs to be discussed, and it needs to be explored much more. That those supportive practices which allow one to be both to build one's own energy level and to keep stable, in my opinion, absolutely vital. So a few days ago I posted a very brief meditation using the sword, and there was something I didn't make clear. The main point of this is the equanimity between action and stillness. And it's that equanimity that allows us to do almost all healing work. It's that internal space where you've gathered your energy and where you're able to focus something and then release that is key behind the use of a ferber or the use of a brush, the use of directing one's physical energy, and also the ability to listen, the ability to be truly present with someone instead of projecting one's own opinions or ideas onto them. Often one might know the solution to something, but if you give it too quickly, you might not have helped the person. They need to find that healing process inside themselves first, so that they're actually able to really receive the healing. And again, that sounds rather paradoxical, that you can often only give something when the person is ready. And part of our practice is finding that readiness. So I hope that helps. I hope that has clarified things. I'm sure I've opened up dozens of questions where maybe more questions than I've answered. But I hope that's interesting. Do give feedback, and if you want to explore any more of that, sign up to the YouTube channel and look me up on Facebook and open up a dialogue. Lovely speaking with you, and talk to you again soon.